you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, this is Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go. When the Iron Lady sings, that tells you that we are live at 5 on the Chris Voss Show. We don't do this show at 5. What are you talking about, Chris? I don't know. Anyway, guys, welcome to the big show. We hope you enjoyed the holidays. It's the new year if you're watching this 10 years from now on YouTube, as people do. It's 2024, January 2nd, I believe. Yeah, there we go. So I hope you've all set all the settings for your resolutions, your goals for the next year. But hopefully one of those goals is listen to Chris Voss Show more. Jesus, we're putting out 3 to 4 shows a weekday, 15 to 20 shows a week. And we're constantly having the most brilliant minds in the show, the CEOs, the billionaires, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the astronauts, the White House advisors from all sorts of different presidential administrations, going back to Nixon, actually. Well, you tried to get JFK, but I think everyone's expired from there. I don't know. We'll check. But these folks bring us the amazing stories, the learnings, the lessons of their lives. And as we always say on the Chris Voss Show, stories are the owner's manual to life. We have another amazing young lady on the show today. Rachael Melot joins us on the show. Her latest book, The 10 Commandments of Success Without Apology. She has a hashtag, Success Without Apology, as well, to go with the book. Joins us on the show, and we'll be talking to her about her book, what goes inside of it, and all that good stuff. In the meantime, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places on the internet. Rachael is the author of the latest aforementioned book and the producer or host of a handful of podcasts ranging from grocery industry insights to local leadership. She was one of 12 women chosen to work with women business leaders in Tunisia through the George W. Bush Women in Fellowship program. And she brings a very unique entrepreneurial yet corporately accepted approach to women's advancement. She's been the keynote for thousands at the National Grocers Association Conference in Las Vegas, to hundreds at the Leadership Oklahoma Forums, to dozens at Connors State University, presidential leader classes, and many others. She has the ability to capture the room with personalized presentations and the ability to laugh at her own mistakes along with her career and to help others face the trials and tribulations of personal brand growth. Welcome to the show, Rachael. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful, Chris. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks for coming. It's an honor to have you. Give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs to get to know you better?
Absolutely. You can start with my name, Rachael Melot. It's RachaelMelot.com, RachaelMelot.com. You can find my name on LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, formerly known as. Or you can look up the Success Without Apology, and that is generally without any spaces, Success Without Apology, either successwithoutapology.com or the same on LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, and formerly known as Twitter.
There you go. Whatever it's called this week. People watch this show 5 to 10 years from now, so I'm sure it might be called bankrupt by then. I don't know the way it's going. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Maybe it'll be called SpaceX or whatever. Maybe it'll be called Y at that point. You know, X, Y, Z.
Yeah, Y.
All I know is I can't find it anymore on my phone. It's a different icon. You know, I've spent 15 years or something looking at the Twitter bird, right?
Right. We've been looking for the blue bird, and now we got to look for the black F.
So I'm always like, where the hell's the blue bird? I like old habits die hard. So give us a 30,000 overview of the 10 Commandments of Success Without Apology.
Yeah, sure. So the really narrowed down scope is, I didn't do success the same way that my mom did, right? And I didn't do success the same way of really anybody I'd ever seen before me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting in boardrooms and I'm across the room and somebody makes a comment about, you're not going to ever be at the top because you don't do it this way. And I thought, well, really? I mean, how close-minded, right? At the end of the day, because I don't do it the way you do it, I'll never get there.
Huh.
And so it's like started breeding a thought of like, why do we think that people have to succeed the same way we did, right? And so I follow that up, and about a year later, sitting in a room, and I'm actually in Prague, Czech Republic. We're meeting with our Tunisian ladies, and one of the gals stands up and says, I'm going to pursue these things regardless of what my husband says. I'm not going to apologize for being more successful than him. And the thought was, oh my gosh, you're going to have success without apology. And immediately the room just erupted in response to that statement. And it was 12 American women who were mentors, and it was 12 Tunisian women being mentored, but the message resonated the same across, right? And so it was like, oh, other people feel this too, right? Yeah. And then that began just the process of what are the ways that we apologize for doing success differently? And so the book takes you through 10 apologies that I thought I was making or that I thought people were asking me to make. And then it's kind of a challenge for the reader to look at it and say, are there things you're doing differently, but rather than owning them and letting them be part of your story, you're apologizing for it.
Ah. Do you think that people do that as a bit of a sabotage or a bit of a, what are some of the terms that people use where they feel like they're an actor?
Like the imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome. There you go. Thank you. You feel that people do that because of imposter syndrome, or they're not worthy enough. There's that thermostat sometimes we have that kind of keeps us in a zone, and whenever we go above it or below it, it kind of kicks in and goes, well, you might be getting a little too big for your britches there.
Oh, for sure. Right. I mean, Chris, think about the story of the crabs crawling out of the bucket, and, one starts to get too high and the other crab's always pulling back down. Right. There's that kind of storyline of that nobody really wants to get too far out of wherever they say their place is going to be. I think there is some truth to that. But I also think some of it is just, and this is geared largely towards women. Both it's to the women and the men readers, but it's really the women's version of success story. And, we just haven't seen a lot of role models before us, so we don't know how to own it. Part of it is we just don't know how. Secondly is the innate cultural things that happen around us and to us that we don't really even recognize that ask us to apologize for success. And so we just do it inherently without even thinking about it. I use this as just a kind of a primary example, and you all heard it, but if I say, hey, Chris, man, that is a great watch that you're wearing, a man will typically go, yes, it is great. It's one of only 6 Rolexes ever made in, this country during this time, made by so-and-so, the magic watchmaker. And everybody will ooh and ah, and we will, men will stand proud of that watch. You can say to, Mrs. Voss, hey, Mrs. Voss, that's a great watch you have. And she'll be like, oh, it's a gift. Somebody gave it to me. And I mean, and it's really not that big of a deal. Or I got it on sale. It was discounted, and I used, my discount. That's an apology, right? Yeah. That's a downplay. That's oh no, please don't let me show out my success, right? Yeah. And just culturally, we do that. I mean, you can ask 12-year-old little girls about those things, and they will shun away from being too proud that they have earned something, or that they bought something, or they have earned a prize.
There you go. Do you think that's a deferment to feminine nature and masculine nature? I mean, as masculine men, we're kind of designed to be a little bit more overt and well, we're something. Let's put it that way. We're very overt. There's a lot of prideful things to being a man. We beat our chests, things like that. And feminine nature is more covert. And do you think there's something to that between the masculine and feminine, the natural part of us?
Yeah. So, Chris, I think that's part of it. I think there's a lot of things that play into it, and I think the real, the reason that we talk about it is because then how do we climb the ladder of success if we can't, be proud of what we've accomplished so far, right? So in corporate America, how do I exude confidence without arrogance in this feminine space where, maybe a generation before me, they said, well, act like a man, be bossy, be that other B word, right? And now we've evolved to this place where it's like, no, you don't have to be a man. Be a woman and be you and do it your way. But we haven't quite seen what that looks like in a lot of industries or spaces, quite frankly. And so trying to figure that out is a little bit of what the book's about.
There you go. Tell us a little bit more about your history. We always ask about the hero's journey. How did you grow up, and what were some of the things that shaped you and kind of made you want to go into business and do things for yourself as an entrepreneur?
Sure. Well, both of my parents were entrepreneurs, but I never knew that, right? Like they never used the word entrepreneur. My mom taught tumbling. My mom opened a travel agency. So she would call herself a small business owner, but never would have considered herself an entrepreneur, if you would. My dad was a rancher. He was a cowboy till the day he died, cowboy, right? All in. And if those guys aren't entrepreneurs, I don't know what is. But they get up every day as their own boss and try to figure out how to make a living off the land, right? Yeah. And so that's how I grew up, just the child of two hardworking parents. With a dad who said, you can be anything you want to be, right? And my mom demonstrating it. Neither of them with a college degree, but they were both very successful. My dad has since passed, but my mom still is hustling, bustling entrepreneur, just always doing great things. But I didn't really know that that's what I was going to be. Honestly, I went to college on a track and field scholarship, and I still had no idea what I was going to be when I grew up. I pursued a teaching degree because people always said, you're a good teacher. I was like, okay, well, I guess that's what I'll do. And graduated still, undecided. And now here I am in the end of my 40s, and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to be when I grow up.
You and me. I'm still trying to figure that all out. But the one thing I do know is I love my podcast. So I've been doing it for 15 years. So I'm going to stick with it, I think. But I love entertaining people, making them laugh. And I love meeting interesting people like yourself and learning from them. There isn't a show that goes by that I don't have an epiphany and or have some sort of paradigm shift where I go, I didn't look at that in that way. But okay, I see now. So hopefully my audience does too, damn it. I'm shaming my audience right now. I have to guilt them. Keep in line. So there you go. Now you've done a lot of cool things here. In the bio, you've run multiple companies, I believe. Let me see where I can find that here. You got a master's degree in educational leadership. Leadership is so important to a lot of these different aspects. And then I know you're running for I think state Congress. Is that correct?
State Senate. Sure.
State Senate. So I want to give you that accolade. And let's see, there was something else, just multiple companies, I think is what I read here, that you've started over the years and done businesses and stuff like that. What do you right now with the book, what are you trying to accomplish? I noticed that you have, you're blowing a whistle, kind of like a coach on the cover of your book. Is that your focus right now, is to build the book, build your speaking, build coaching, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. So, yes. So I do motivational speaking and kind of corporate coaching on creating environments for success for all people. And I do a lot of consulting work to small to large associations or organizations on that. The whistle that you see in there is actually a tribute to the fact that I did 24 years of officiating basketball.
Oh,
yes.
There you go.
And so I did more than a decade refereeing Division I women's basketball all over the country. And I think that being on the sideline and having this really unique position as a referee to, manage a basketball game, make correct calls, and also hear and listen to people when maybe they aren't as sane as they would be if they were outside those lines. Puts me, in a unique position to be able to negotiate tough situations, to have crucial conversations, to be able to experience a lot of emotions and find a way to find solution and or agreement or at least acceptance, regardless of kind of where the emotions are coming from. And so the whistle on the cover of the book is, it's just that. It's a tribute to really the lessons I learned on the sideline of being a referee.
There you go. Now, do you tell those stories in the book?
I do tell a few of those stories in the book. Yeah.
There you go. And, you might want to apply to the NFL. They've had a couple bad calls recently. I think one was a Kansas City game or something. I don't know what it was. If it's not the Raiders, I don't pay attention, but evidently they're not happy with at least.
Lions game. It was the Lions game.
It was the Lions game?
Yeah. And so, yes, people are still quite heated. I watched it this morning on SportsCenter while I was on the trip.
Yeah. I guess the officiating team has been demoted, so there's something.
Well, it's unfortunate, right? I mean, officials make thousands of decisions every game, and one of them can, sideline their career for a period of time. So it's a tough job. It's a really tough job, right?
Yeah, it is. People can blame you for everything. You don't make the playoffs, and it's the ref's fault. It's not fair sometimes. It's a tough job.
It is. It is.
But I imagine it builds a lot of character for yourself. You're spending a lot of time analyzing things, trying to make the right calls, and it shapes you in a lot of ways as a referee, as a leader. I mean, technically, as a referee or a leader, you're in charge of, making sure that everyone follows the rules and the game is played fairly. And, you try and be a good judge of balance. That's being a CEO of companies all my life since 18. I mean, that's one of the factors I always tried to be a good judge and be able to call the ball right. If I had to fire someone or demote them or throw them out of second story windows, the callback joke on the show. Don't do that, folks. That's just a joke. Don't do that. We never did that. Anyway, whatever. The lawyers maybe say that. But we might have done it. That or I was about ready to jump out of second story window sometimes over employees. But, learning to be a good judge. And I think that's really important in leadership, in learning how to be a good judge, being a good evaluator. Because not only you have to evaluate the business, the aspects of where it's going, but a lot of times you have to evaluate employees. And you have to go, what's going on with this employee? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? How can I maybe fix them or provide servant leadership to make them better, et cetera, et cetera? Any of your thoughts on what I just made up there, thin air?
That is an important aspect, is the ability to have discernment and evaluate situations and see everybody's point of view, but yet do what is right. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing about being a basketball official, to your point, is you really have to be of utmost integrity, and you have to, you have to behave better than everyone else, right? Mm-hmm. You have to manage your emotions better than everyone else. Mm-hmm. It's a role where you stand and get called everything under the book, and the expectation is that you will respond kindly and professionally, regardless, right? Yeah. And everyone else in the arena has carte blanche to say or do whatever they would like to you, right? Yeah. And so it's a very unique situation to be able to know that you must always be of utmost integrity, and you also have to have a lot of control over your emotions and over your words. We have the tool of a technical foul, but that's about it, right? I've had coaches bow up to me. I've had coaches threaten me. I've had players threaten parents.
Threaten a woman? Jesus.
Oh, of course.
What are we coming to, man?
Father that, followed me all the way in my car and threatened me. I mean, it's all the things, right?
Wow. The participation generation sort of thing. I don't know. I when I was raised, when I was raised back in my day. All right, here comes Chris with the "Get Off My Lawn" speech. Old man, Thanks, Boomer. I'm not a Boomer, people. But, back in my day, they did teach sportsmanship, and it did seem like team sports were a little bit nicer. People shouted stuff, but, I mean, at the end of the day, everyone shook hands. I remember, we went through a sportsmanlike thing. I think in basketball, we had YBA, I think it was called, Youth Basketball Association. We'd all just shake hands before and after the game and have a modicum of sportsmanship. We were taught sportsmanship, but yeah, I think it's really changed now. And you see a lot of violence and people getting in fights and stuff. I remember there was somebody I was dating, and I went to the basketball games of her kid, and there's people getting fist fights in the bleachers, and I was like, they're children here, people. They're watching. Like, they're not even, like, I remember, I think at one time, her son said to her, he goes, Mom, I really don't care that much. You're really caring more than I care. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on there, but I'm the one playing the game and I'm fine. So just calm down. But it's kind of funny how engaged people get. But yeah, I mean, you have a rule book, you have the rules, they're written. And so you have to get people to form them. And of course, everybody wants to play. Well, my team, the rules don't apply, and we could bend the rules, and, they weren't on the foul line, or whatever the case is. And you're like, no, this is my job. This is what we do every day. And we're really good at it, and holding the line. But,
I did hear a sports broadcaster this morning, telling the story of, giving the officials at least the credit to say, actually officials genuinely want to get plays right. I mean, this is why there is replay now.
Yeah.
It didn't come from the coaches. It didn't come from the leagues. It came from the officials, right? The officials want to get plays right. They watch a lot of film. They do a lot of study. But it's the only piece of the game where perfection is expected, right? I mean, you can shoot 70% from the free throw line and still be successful. 30% behind the free throw line and be successful. You can win, 80% of your games and be successful. 30% behind the plate, if you will. But officiating, the expectation is perfection, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a really hard thing to live up to. And everybody's, human.
There you go. Yeah, everybody makes mistakes. I mean, even referees. But you try and you're judge and jury. You try and get it right. You try and do the right thing. Integrity is important. Certainly, some of the people in the stands might have a little bit of bias.
Maybe a little.
Maybe some less integrity. So there you go. But you're the person who has to hold the line and try and make it fair for both teams. So let's tease out some of these 10 commandments, if you will. We always like to have people buy the book to find out what the whole story is, but can you tease out a couple of these 10 commandments that maybe are your favorites?
Sure. There's a couple of them. I think for the first one, that I would probably put up there is one of the apologies is do not apologize for your motherhood status. And this is really touchy because, when I first entered into the executive world, it would not be uncommon for the hiring committee to ask questions like, who's taking care of the kids if you, a female, are going to work, right? Mm-hmm. Are you going to take your sick days to take care of children, et cetera, right? And these were looked at as negatives for hiring females. Wow. Fast forward to get into the workforce. And then in other environments, you found people who were like, oh, well, if we're going to hire you as a female, are you planning on having children soon? Are you going to need maternity leave? Are you going to be out? And that was a negative to hiring them. And then on the flip side, you'd hire some single person, and the expectation was that single person always worked the late shift or the weekend shift or the holiday shift because, well, they're single. They don't have children.
They don't have a life.
So, yeah, right? You don't have a life.
That's me, so I know.
We're just going to take your life, right? And so one of the things that I work through here is like, don't apologize on either side of that and set your boundaries accordingly, right?
There you go.
And so I talk about, I opted to not have children. And so one of those things that, I was asked many times in interviews, especially as I got into almost my 30s, was, when are you going to have children? And all the conversations that happen after that, right? And so one of the apologies I say is, if you're a female and you have 4 children at home, and you need to have on your resume what a really amazing project manager you are, because you managed to get 4 kids to 4 things at 4 different times, all in one minivan. Like, you have mad time management skills, right? And so don't apologize for your motherhood status. Instead, find ways to show what you have gleaned from that experience and what life gives you, not what it takes from you.
Yeah.
And so that's a great commandment that people may find interesting to read, because I find many people who say, "Oh, well, I don't have kids, so I'm not going to read that chapter." And I say, I dare you, go ahead and read it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because hopefully, I don't know, we've had some people on the show lately that have talked about this, but it seems like some of the people in jobs and job recruiting are starting to realize that life experience and what you've done in your life across it, whether it's been job applicable or not, is experience that helps you, problem solve, evaluate, some of the stuff that, we're talking about with what you did in coaching plays into business and leadership and stuff like that. It all cross plays. And so, yeah, certainly if you have 4 children, I don't know, you may be able to multitask better than I do, because if I get, I haven't had children either, and if I get around them, I can handle about 20 minutes before, well, actually it's 10, before I start losing my freaking mind.
Before they start you.
And I love children. They're great. They're great for other people. And I think it's so great that they're holding up my end of the breeding process that the universe wanted me to do.
That's right.
But thank you for covering my end of the action. Those of you who had 5, 6 kids above the average norm. Thank you, Utah, pretty much, basically. So, there's an average of 10 kids or whatever that goes on up there. And thank you also for doing my part of the wives. I skipped that too. So thanks, Utah, for doing the polygamous wife thing. Anyway. But you're right. Raising 4 kids, if you raise 2, even if you don't raise, these are all life experiences and stuff. Certainly all these different aspects. What's another 10 commandment that you want to tease out, maybe?
Yeah. So this one I think is important for the business owner, which is don't apologize when you pivot, right? And I think this became a much more popular word during COVID. But I wrote this book right before COVID, released it a couple of years before COVID. And so this wasn't a term everybody was using. But really, in life, sometimes in your version of success, you may have to pivot. To your point, I've owned a couple of small businesses, and, sometimes they run their course, right? You run a construction business. That is a period of life, and that is a time. And then there comes a time when you're like, okay, and now I've learned what I needed from this, or gleaned what I needed, and we're going to take a pivot. In the book, I tease out some of the personal choices that I needed to pivot away from, and really kind of how being hurt or vulnerable or broken at some point in life creates opportunities to pivot. And so in the book, it talks a little bit about, when those things happen that, really gut check you and question, really put into question everything you think to be truth and stable. And you may need to pivot.
There you go.
And it's a life experience, right?
Yeah. You give me an interesting paradigm to think about how, I've had companies that have gone out of business, and, we built a nice little empire for almost 20 years. And then 2008 came along, and one of our biggest assets was a mortgage company. So that went well. In the mortgage company meltdown crisis, of all the things to own, I thought I would own that company forever. But your paradigm that you stated that, maybe it was more of a thing where you learned everything you needed to do and you needed some new challenges. I love looking at it that way, because the other way was really painful.
True. Yeah.
Very
You can wallow in it, right? You can wallow in the sorrows, or you can make that list of like these are the things that I took from that I learned from that. And sometimes I'm like, thank you, God, I don't need to learn that lesson anymore. I got it. Let's move on to a new lesson.
Yeah, most definitely. And yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Some people take it on as a hit to the chin, and they go, I'm a failure. I screwed up. I'm worthless. Maybe they're going to do apology like you talk about in your book. But having the paradigm, okay, well, this is we ran its course. It's interesting. I found some companies, you have a great business model, it runs its course 5 years, 10 years, then all of a sudden markets change, or Amazon maybe steps into your field. There's a million different things that can happen, and then suddenly it doesn't work anymore, and you're just like, well, holy crap a moly, what do we do now? And off you run. Let's tease out one more, if you don't mind, before we go.
Sure. So let's say, out of the 10 Commandments, I'll talk a little bit about this one then just a little bit differently, which is, don't apologize for other people's emotions. Mm-hmm. And so this is one of those things where I think as we enter into workforces that maybe haven't hired a lot of women, or they haven't hired a lot of people who look like you or act like you or speak like you, other people may exude certain emotions that you don't need to apologize for, right? Yeah. And so how do you navigate success and the journey without assuming everyone else's emotions? And that's in the corporate space. And then I would say, like, in the personal space, as you look for the perfect mate or the perfect partner or the perfect wife or husband or whatever that may be, your journey of success may travel faster or slower than theirs, which then leads to them having emotions about your success. And I think one of the things that, that I have learned through failure and some success is that I can't make your emotions better, right? I can't make you feel better about my success. Yep. And so, we have to be really careful with the people we surround ourselves with, because we really have to look for people that we put in our life that can accept our success, that they aren't the crab in the bucket pulling us back down, right? That they're actually out there rah-rahing with us. And that may be friendships, that may be partnerships, that may be marriages, that may be business partners, quite frankly. Yeah. If you are, if you're apologizing for other people's emotions, it's going to definitely hinder your ability to progress and succeed.
Definitely. You can't live your life based upon other people's emotions. I had a friend say recently on Facebook, he goes, try not to be a dick. I don't know, it was some sort of mantra that he was trying to do of like doing whatever. And I'm like, and so I responded and we had a little discussion about it. And I was like, but dude, you can't control people's perception of you. If they think you're going to be a dick, then what are you going to do? Are you going to try and, be servile or walk around like you say, maybe, apologizing? I hope I'm not a dick today to anyone. I'm trying really hard. Which is the opposite of what I do every day. And you just can't live your life that way. You can't live your life, being everyone's step on. And, there's always going to be, number one, there's two types of people. There's people that are just going to perceive the way you are. You're a jerk. You're, I'm just surprised when people come and tell me what a wonderful guy I am. I'm like, have you seen me lately? And I'm like, you clearly have me confused with somebody else, because everyone else is telling me I'm an asshole, which is true. But and so you got those people, and then you got some people, they just hate you for your success, like you talked about. They're not your cheerleader, and so they're going to think you're a dick, whether you're not being a dick or you're being a dick. I've had a lot of people make a lot of quick judgments about me, which are usually right if they're 4-letter expletives, and So there's that. You just can't live your life that way. It's a horrible way to try and live, trying to be a people pleaser to everybody, because you just never can please everybody.
No, and you have to be true to yourself and be the best version of yourself that you can be. And you can take those, assessments and evaluations, and you can put them in your pocket and say, okay, those exist. Those have come in. I've evaluated them as truth or false. But you can't. You probably can't change a lot of those, right? You can't get up each day and go, well, I'm not going to go on the Chris Voss show today because he's got way too many followers. Somebody's going to think that I'm trying to show out, right? Wow. And so what I'm saying is, that is something that women have apologized for, that women regularly apologize for. I hear it. I hear them say this to me. I hear husbands say to me, oh my gosh, I'm buying this book for my wife because she apologizes all the time. and I'm like, it is. And so, the band theory, it's put the rubber band on your wrist, and every time you say the words, I'm sorry, pop that band. If it's not actually an I'm sorry, but maybe it should have been an excuse me, or, may I, talk to you, not I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah. It can fix a lot of that. Narcissism.
That'll do it.
You never have to say sorry to anybody ever again.
Yeah, that'll do it. There are times to say I'm sorry. Yeah. But there are also times to just say excuse me, or to just start the question. Teen did a commercial in the 80s, and they released this commercial in Asia. They'd never released it in the United States, but it's actually a sorry, not sorry ad campaign. Oh. And it's really interesting. When you share this, you can definitely put that commercial in the show notes or tag that old video. It won a ton of awards. Mm-hmm. But it demonstrates in great, 45-second videos, these just cultural apologies that we make. And a woman will say, oh, I'm sorry. Here, will you hold these groceries while I get the other 25 bags out of the car? But I'll say, I'm sorry when I ask you to hold them. Or I'll sit down next to you and you'll bump my arm off the armrest and I'll say, I'm sorry. Yeah. Right. And so these unnecessary apologies, what they found in a lot of the research that they do by people much smarter than me is that those I'm sorry's that are unnecessary really shrink a person's presence, right? And so it makes you smaller, always kind of underling and kind of pushing yourself down, when maybe you're in an equal setting where just eliminating those two words helps the perception of you dramatically. Yeah,
I just knocked their arm back off the airline seat and just take control of the airline seat. I'm big enough anyway. I just give them a look and they're just like, yeah. But no, you're right. I mean, I've done that in times of my life, and so I think some people mistake it for being polite. You just want to be polite. You don't want to cause a scene, and stuff. I know that sometimes I've been yelled at by women that have been like, "Quit saying sorry all the time," and I'm like, I'm just being polite. Like, I mean, I have two choices. I can say I'm sorry or whatever. I don't know. There's a joke there somewhere. I can't find it. But you're like, okay, well, okay. I just won't apologize for anything anymore, which I've found works as well. Blame everybody else. That way you never have to apologize. Blame everyone else for everything you do wrong. Take no self-accountability, people. That's the real key to it. No, I'm just kidding. So there you go. Give us a final pitch out on the show for your book, people to get acquainted with your services and what you offer there, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So thanks again, Chris, for having me on the show. I appreciate it. I'm a listener. I listen to your podcast and appreciate it. But if you want to get to know the Rachael Melot message, you can go to rachaelmelot.com or successwithoutapology.com. I would ask, to read the book, buy the book. You can buy it on Amazon or anywhere you buy books. You can download my podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you download podcasts. And, the other thing I would say is just, if you're a woman, just think about the apologies that you make during the day and see if they are really necessary. And if you're a man that you notice women are apologizing, encourage them, right, to apologize if it's necessary, but not apologize for things like just doing success your own way in your own version.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you read the book. I'd love to come talk to your company or organization if this is a message that resonates with you, or if you're seeing a change in your industry, like I have in so many others, where maybe second or third generation daughters are now taking over companies. And it looks different. They run it differently. They manage people differently. And what does that look like for policies, procedures, meetings, et cetera, that now that there's kind of a new voice in the room, what do those need to look like so that we can be as efficient as possible?
There you go. Thank you very much, Rachael, for coming to the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
There you go. Thanks for coming. And folks, order up the book wherever fine books are sold. The 10 Commandments of Success Without Apology, the hashtag Success Without Apology. Did we get your .coms before we went out? I can't remember if we got them.
RachelMelot.com and successwithoutapology.com.
There you go. Thank you very much. Thanks, my honest, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, the Chris Voss newsletter. So sign up for that. The 130,000 LinkedIn group, Chris Voss 1 on TikTok, and ChrisVossFacebook.com. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time. And that